Good evening, fellow Threadheads, and welcome to another episode of Threadheads. I'm your co-host here, Brad England, with the Jason Spangler. We got some great topics to talk about on this episode. Just a quick rundown. Jason's got a campfire blanket he's going to show us and talk about a little bit. We're going to go through a beginner tip, at Trader Ease called your patch bag. We're also going to talk about tools of the hobby, helping or hurting the hobby. This is kind of a reach out episode. We got a few things we want to reach out to the Scout Patch Collectors group about as ideas and helpful tools. We're also going to have our usual Jason Spangler ninja trick, which has become a staple in our show. So before we get started, of course, just kind of get into this. Jason, what's talking about summer? You and I were talking earlier about what our summers look like. I know I'm going to visit my youth summer camp at least once, maybe a couple of times this summer. That's the plan. And also at the end of June, we're going to be having a lodge reunion vigil dinner. That's my home lodge's Wissawanic 190. If you guys haven't figured that out by now, I'm sure you will. It's our 75th anniversary, so we're having a 75th anniversary celebration and a vigil dinner. So end of June, I'm looking forward to a great reunion, and we're really trying to reach out to some members from over the years, and it ought to be a great time. So really just got some information about that today, as a matter of fact. So I'm really excited about that. Jason, how's your scouting summer looking like?
Well, Brad, you'll appreciate this story. I want to take my Girl Scout troop canoeing and kayaking as much as possible. We actually live in a town that has a river that runs right through it. Don't ask anybody in Texas about that right now. That would be a liability. But where I live, it's not a problem to have a river running right through town. It's kind of pretty. So I decided to sign up to go to Girl Scout training for that, and I thought it was just a one-day thing. I have to drive about 2 hours to get to the training, and I got a confirmation email today and read through, and I was like, oh, wait a minute. They want me to be there on Sunday also. So, So I have a 2-day Girl Scout training I'm going to. That'll be a lot of fun. Canoeing and kayaking. Then probably go to an OA work day. I'm actually not going on any long-term camps. My wife is actually taking our Girl Scout troop to camp for a week. Other than that, probably NOAC is it for me as far as scouting this summer. So that's kind of it. I'll go ahead and roll us into our first topic, and that is campfire blankets. So what I've got here is a campfire blanket to show everybody. And campfire blankets, I would sort of say, are a European tradition. They're definitely not a tradition that comes from people that live in the deep south, like the Carolinas, where it's hot and humid for many, many months out of the year, because you would never want to go on a Boy Scout camping trip and wear a blanket around you. You would sweat to death, and that wouldn't be much fun. But if you lived in a cold weather climate like Canada or the United Kingdom or some other European countries, and this also is true in Australia and New Zealand, they're very popular there, then the idea of having a campfire blanket is really cool. And as it sort of suggests, it's a blanket that you would wear at night. They're often sort of shaped like a poncho or something, and they're decorated with badges. These badges, what I did was, in the summer of 2000, still one of the coolest things I've ever done in scouting before kids, I was able to go and do international camp staff in England. And so I went and worked on a camp staff at a camp outside of Dover in England called Kingsdown, and was there for 6 weeks. The greatest, funnest thing I ever did in scouting. Over there in England, campfire blankets was a real big deal. And so what I did on eBay before I went was I actually bought a British Scout blanket. This began as a British Scout blanket. And while I was over there, I tried to trade with all the people who came to the camp. We had scouts from Germany, a lot from England, different places. I tried to trade patches with them, and then my idea was to sew patches on this blanket as kind of like a commemorative thing. And so some of these on here definitely are patches. I know specifically these ones right here are English, I believe those are patrol patches that I traded with while I was there. So Brad, let me just step away for a second. I want to show you this thing because it's kind of big. Hopefully this stays in the camera. One other thing about campfire blankets is a lot of times, especially European ones, in the back, they're going to have some kind of a handmade emblem that kind of, this one's made of sort of like a different cloth material, and this one was for the 209th Bristol. So that would have been a troop or a unit, and I guess this is like a fox or something on there. And so that's kind of a cool deal. If you want to make a campfire blanket in that style, you need to have some kind of piece on the back that's original, one big piece. What I did was I then sewed patches on this. Some of them I got on eBay, some of them I got different places, and arranged it into sort of a poncho deal. And the way that it works is I've actually got a little clasp here that can go across and connect. I'm fixing to turn into Frodo, Brad. Just wait. My wife, I drive her crazy when I put these things on. But anyways, here I am. I've got this campfire blanket, and I'll just sort of turn around, give you the look here. Da-da-da. And I've got a little hood, right, so you can keep yourself warm. That's the whole idea, right? You know, ooh. So this is my campfire blanket, and every patch on here is a foreign patch. There's no American patches on here, which I think is kind of cool. So this is my international blanket. Confession, I did actually buy some of the patches that you see here on eBay. I didn't trade for all of them. I just simply couldn't trade for all of them. But that's a lot of fun. And I wear that maybe like once a year, maybe. So that's for 2015. I just wore it. I can't wear it again for the rest of 2015. So that's Campfire Blankets, Brad. I think we're going to give it over to you now, and we're going to talk about this idea of your patch bag. This is more of our beginner tip.
Absolutely, Jason. Hey, thank you. I enjoyed the modeling there. Thank you. You know, man, when I go to a tradery, I'm the guy that carries around the backpack full of these bags, man. This is it. This is my trade material right here. So usually I'm decent enough to where, you know, like this bag, for instance, is Lodge 66 stuff out, you know, Yata Hay stuff out of New Mexico, which is one of the lodges I collect, and so obviously I get dupes of. But this is my collecting method or trading method. I'll have bags of these patches, of course, from my home lodge, my home council. You know, I might have a bag that's just stuff, you know, just random lodge flaps or random council strips. And so I would stop at a table, drop my backpack, and what do you collect? And I'm, you know, dig out my bags or whatever. Well, a couple years ago, and I believe it was the Dallas tradery I was going to, I didn't get a table, which is, you know, until recently I didn't really get tables. I just went to trade. So I was going down for the day, and I figured I needed a little better way of carrying my patches. So I went onto Amazon and ordered this guy, Jason. This is pretty cool. I'm gonna back up a little bit so you can see it. This is a 3-inch binder, but it's a zip-up binder. Great thing about this is when it's zipped up, you know, you got your pages in there, your patches in there, or whatever. They don't fall out. It's got a little handle on it and carry it kind of like a briefcase, and it's got a little strap to go around your shoulder so you can carry it around like that. This one's actually pretty convenient. It's got this little bitty zipper pocket right here. So if I ended up making a trade with somebody, it's something I'm going to keep, instead of sliding it back inside of here, I might throw it in there. I actually do that on my backpack too. I have one outside pocket that I always put my collection stuff in. So if I'm trading out of my backpack, I'll throw something I pick up for my collection in that outside zipper pocket, so I know that's like the designated area. You know, don't trade that off because you need this for your collection. But I'm going to go ahead and kind of open this up for you, Jason. This was, like I said, one of my ideas, and I'll probably like haul this to summer camp with me too when I go to do just a little bit of trading. Throw some patches in it just to have, you know, in the back of the car, in the back seat or whatever, and it's pretty self-contained. But once you open it up, you know, here's my my pages of, in this case, lodge flaps. This was a lodge flap, you know, dupe box that I emptied out a couple of days ago, and so there's just kind of defeating me here, but you know, just pages of, you know, in this case, lodge flaps, just front to back. Quite a few in there. Actually, this took up about 2 of those little shoebox-sized tubs, and I was able to put them into this one binder. So, in reality, it takes up about the same amount of space, but this is a little bit more self-contained. Zip it up; they won't fall out and fly out. I don't have to stack them. I can kind of toss this in my trunk if I wanted to. So, yeah, man, those are kind of the two methods for me. You got this or this. So, I mean, my suggestion is, even if you do, you know, another little binder, I think the hard thing about, you know, another 3-inch binder, 2-inch binder is keeping those patches tucked in those pages. And then with the zip-up one, you don't have to worry about it. If you drop it, they don't scatter everywhere. They're kind of self-contained. You're not looking at them. So pretty cool little idea that I liked for when I went to Trader East. I'm sure somebody else will adopt it, and I'm probably not the first one to come up with that idea, but that's what I use. What about you, Jason? You got some kind of beginner tip trick for us?
Yeah, we'll stay on this idea of a patch bag. And so what I want to show you is this patch bag right here. I don't always use this one, but it is one of kind of my favorite ones. And what I like about this, it's a good example of something I'm very guilty of, and that is repurposing things and turning them into patch related. I used to be real bad about this. I'd go into any store, anywhere, like a thrift store or something, and I would look for something. I'd say, can I use that for patches? And so what you're looking at here is actually they sell something similar. I bought this a long time ago. They sell something similar in Lowe's. This is actually a tool bag or a tool kit, I guess you'd say. It's designed to put your tools in. And where I have sewn this OA flap at was actually the name of this company that had this bag. And so I love doing this, Brad. This is sort of a Jason weird thing. I love sewing patches over top of monograms and sort of converting things into Boy Scouts. I'm bad for going to Goodwill and looking at the rack at Goodwill where they have jackets and stuff, and they'll have like a little monogrammed something on the chest, and I'll be like, I could sew a little patch over that and cover that up and turn that into a Boy Scout jacket. So I'm sort of bad for doing that. You should see my closet. But this one right here, the cool thing about it is, like you said, Brad, you got zipper space here, on the back side here. This opens up because, again, you're supposed to put tools in it. So you got some good, decent space there. And then the front has a little buckle, and it opens up to something similar to what you've got. Now, this is actually like a little art portfolio bag, but it fits just perfectly in here. I don't believe I'm going to have any patches in here. I think it's stripped out right now. But this has sort of like the pages that you've probably seen at Hobby Lobby or wherever, the big binder pages. And so I can have some stuff in there. So it kind of gives me that same thing you're talking about. Put it on your shoulder, walk around at an event, and you have a lot of options there. So I think if you were a new collector, a beginning collector, it's a lot of fun to think about repurposing things that you might already have or that you see at thrift stores and Goodwill stores for using them for Boy Scout patches. And I'm real guilty of that. So Brad, we'll get off of that topic and we're going to go to our main topic, which is talking about maybe something a little controversy. We try to add a little spice to our shows here. The idea of tools for the hobby, and are they helping or hurting patch trading? So Brad, I'll let you start that one off.
Hey, thanks, Jason. Yeah, man. This kind of came to me this last week, or over the course of actually a couple months, as the group's growing and you're getting more exposed to people to make trades with and through the group. But I mentioned to you, Jason, something about tools of the hobby. Now, are they helping or hurting more? And I mean, this is a balance and probably an argument that couldn't be won either way. But we have things like eBay, and now Brett has come up with this great resource, the patchtrends.com, and even had oaimages.com when it was up to date that had these pricing guidelines. Well, the helping and hurting portion of that is is patchtrends.com helping to make trades, or is this more of a dealer tool? And I guess it depends on where you are with those kind of transactions. But are we depending way too much upon the current market value, or what an item went for, that keeps us from doing trading and transactions? And I mean, I'm sure I'm guilty of this too. But I had a recent trade I was trying to work out, and just because of these tools and stuff, we were having trouble lining up where we wanted the trade to be. And so it became so much like a business transaction for a hobby, where it goes from being, hey, I want to trade my patch for your patch, and back and forth with things like that it became like, oh, well, this patch just recently sold for $100, and you and I know how lopsided that can be. I mean, you can put a patch up for auction and it goes for $200, and you could post that same patch a week later, and it could go for $20. I mean, now that's a little bit of a stretch, but the reality of it is with eBay and these eBay pricing and patch trends, Jason, it really only takes two. So if you and I wanted a patch, we can drive each other's pricing up all day long. But now with these patch trends and eBay being able to look at finished eBay listings, are we pricing the value? Are we valuing that patch based on two fanatics? Say you and I are both chasing, let's say an Inami R1. We're X1 or any of those big patches that we're like driving the price up on just because you and I both feel like we really need it bad. But bidder number 3 dropped out hundreds of dollars ago. So there's just so much with that. But going back to that, are these tools really helping as far as a hobby goes, or are they hurting it? These dealer tools versus trading tools. Just one of those things. I'm not really sure. I can see both sides of it, Jason, and I'm sure other people have opinion. Love to have some feedback on it, way people feel about it, if this is really affecting their transactions and stuff. And what are your thoughts on it, Jason? I know you've got a little. I would consider you more of a dealer than myself. So how do you view that?
Yeah, so I'd say I'm very guilty of using all the resources you've just mentioned in my eBay business, because as someone who's trying to turn the patches into me to fund more acquisitions and to fund things for my collection, I'm very interested to know what sort of a thing is sold for in the past, just to give me a guide. And I did this Prices Realized guides a few years ago, and essentially what I was doing there was trying to capture all the sales data of everything that sold for $100 or more, figuring that made it kind of newsworthy. And so in those books, in a way, as you've described, I sort of etched in stone, back in 2011 or 2012, this item did sell for this amount. Now, I always had a disclaimer in there saying that doesn't necessarily mean that's what it's worth, but it just was sort of a guide to kind of tell you that's what it has sold at one time. And I think that's how I generally use the OA Images price guide, which is a really good price guide to get ballpark numbers on patches, not anything real recent, but patches that are maybe 5 years or older, and then using Brett's site for things from, I believe he picks up about 2012 forward is where his pricing kind of comes from. And so newer things, I can go in there and type in a search just to figure out what I think it's worth. But I do see your point that it is, if you're talking about patch trading, then when someone consults those guides, it can make things complicated, because it does maybe represent, it's sort of the antithesis of just trading for one. If you're going to line it up and say, I have a $9 patch and you have a $6 patch, we're short $3, meet me in the middle or something. It gets a little bit extreme, and it does sort of slow down the works there. Myself, when I trade patches, generally, I'm trading things that I know I have duplicates of, so I'm trading them one for one anyways. I'm not too worried about whether or not I get something back in return that's worth, significantly more or whatever. But that's just kind of how I do trading. I don't nearly do as much trading as you do on the group. I do very, very little trading. And that's probably because I am very guilty of being more of a dealer. When I acquire collections that I buy, I generally am interested in trying to resell those, and I don't generally just trade them for things, because my needs are very specific. And I am a collector, but my needs are very specific. And so to try to, put out trade offers and get things that I want, I think would be chasing my tail a little bit. So that's sort of the dealer, side of this argument, Brad. I'm going to throw it back to you and let you have another spin at it.
Yeah, Jason. I agree too. I think there's a use for both of them. I really do. One of the, pet peeves from a trading standpoint, a hobby standpoint, and sometimes it gets to the point where that just getting to know somebody, trading that my lodge flap for yours or my CSP for yours type thing, that just begins that friendship, kind of starts to fade a little bit in a business transaction. So try not to get too muddy with that. That's my opinion on it. You're trying to get to the point where it doesn't muddy up the transaction and the experience from a hobby standpoint. So absolutely something. Just interested to hear what other people think about it, and how often, am I reading more into it because it happened to me recently than it really is. I mean, always looking for feedback from you guys. So, please send us something. Jason, I'm gonna go ahead and kind of roll us into our next little segment here, and you and I were talking scout patch collectors, ideas or some helping tools and that kind of stuff. I just made a little list of things, and once again, looking for some feedback from the group. Things to help the group grow. Things we can do for the hobby. At one point in time, someone came up with a document where you could go in there and put your name and your lodge you belong to, your council, what you collect type thing. I think we've kind of abandoned that, but I'd like to see something like that maybe come back where we have a member listing, maybe something that's a little easier than a document to get to. Obviously, we have the scoutbatchcollectors.com page. We could host something like that on. Maybe a map with pins. I think it'd be interesting to see. I know from my perspective, if I knew somebody, Jason, I was looking for a lodge flap from, Quapaw Lodge 160 out of Arkansas, and I could go to a list and find that person. Maybe 2 or 3 people listed there that are from that lodge or that council, and then you can kind of make that search to help build your collection. Something like that would be really cool. I think it's a tool we're really missing out on, just maybe just because it hasn't been brought up yet. And I don't know if it's something you could even do that would be real user-friendly. But just that was kind of one idea. Another thing like a map, dropping pins on a map where all our members are, or even the more active members. I mean, it would be a feature or something that they could do themselves. So just some thoughts, looking for some feedback. One of the other ideas that we've talked about for a while is maybe some kind of identity pocket patch or something that says I'm a member of Scout Patch Collectors Facebook group. Just something like that where, when you're at NOAC and you run into, a couple people that are on the group, you can say, hey, oh yeah, you were so-and-so from the group. I mean, I had an experience a couple years ago where I caught up with a group member at Philmont when we just happened to be there at the same time, and got to meet up and say hi for 5 or 10 minutes. But it was through the group that we made that connection, and got to put a name with a face because we'd made previous trades and stuff. So kind of a discussion piece more than anything. A little patch on, you guys want to wear it to NOAC, or they wear it to Camporee or council events if you wanted to wear it. Maybe just a little pocket dangle. I mean, just some ideas that we can bring some more features and stuff to the group. Jason, you got any feedback on that? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, one of the things that we've tried to do the whole time that we've been doing this group is just to keep it very sort of open. We don't want anyone to feel like you and I are like the vice presidents of the group. We try not to be heavy-handed. We try not to act like we're in charge. In fact, sometimes there are people who probably wish we were more in charge of the group, but we purposefully sort of try to stay back in the background and try not to have a bureaucracy or anything like that, which may turn some people off. But what we're really looking for here is, what are ideas that would make the group be even more useful to you? And so I do really like this idea, and I'm going to explore this, Brad, of trying to find some sort of a widget or a WordPress plugin or something that would allow us to have people sort of drop in where they are from, where they live, because it would be really interesting to see how many people around you within 50, 100-mile radius are members of the group. That would just be really interesting to do. And I'm sure it would have to be voluntary. People would have to go in and enter their information themselves, but still it's kind of a cool idea. We've talked about patches several times. We still have on the table the idea of doing something for NOAC. So that's definitely can be done. We're sort of in uncharted waters. I mean, there were, as I've said many times, there was a Yahoo group maybe 15 years ago that I have referenced before as kind of like a precursor to what we have. The I'm going to miss the name here, Scout Collector Society, I think is what it was. And the gentleman who ran that did some things a little different than we've done. We haven't made near as many patches as he made, and some other things that he did. And then there's the other extreme, something like an ISCA, which is very formal, has a president, elections, bank accounts, the whole deal, and we're very, very far away from that. So we're kind of in this just sort of living on the internet, wide open place, and just wondering, are there any other tools that people would like us to try to develop or come up with? Facebook is a very limiting factor because there's only so much we can do in that environment, and that's where the group really lives, is on the Facebook page, obviously. So we're just looking for feedback. If you have some ideas, kind of let us know about that. Brad, I'll go ahead and roll us into our next to the last segment then, talking about, I guess we could call this a ninja trick. It's not quite ninja, but with NOAC coming up, one of the things that'll kind of be an issue, and you wouldn't really think this is a problem, is how do you tape your 2-patch sets together? So I've grabbed some sets out of a box that I have, and this is always kind of a thing, do you tape the set, do you not tape the set? For those of you who have no idea what the hell I'm talking about, let me just show you. Most lodges are going to issue a patch for this NOAC coming up in August in Michigan State University, and it's going to be 2 separate pieces of patches. And typically what happens is, we call this a 2-patch set, obviously, and typically what's going to happen is you have tape on the back to hold the 2 pieces together. Now, if somebody was really smart, they would say, why don't you just sew it all together and make it one big patch? But Brad, we don't like to do that. That's not really how people like their 2-patch sets. They want them separate. And so what I would sort of recommend here is, and I'm going to give you a good example. Right here is an example of a patch that has blue, what I would call painter's tape on it. And the painter's tape is not going to stick near as bad. Especially one problem you'll have is if you pull off masking tape, sometimes you'll pull off the hologram sticker and some of those other stickers that people kind of want to be on their patches to keep them authentic and original. So that's something you definitely want to try to think about. I have used masking tape in the past, and that's probably okay, but painter's tape like this is probably a better solution. Let me tell you one other tip, and this may be even more valuable than talking about what types of tape to use. If you're at NOAC, this is the tip you need to pay attention to. If you're at NOAC, this will sound weird, but go with me. You need to carry around a roll of tape in the bag that you have your patches. And here's why. There is nothing sadder, Brad, than an orphaned patch. Do you know that? There's no sadder patch than an orphaned patch, that a bottom that is missing its top. It's literally like a child that can't find its mother. And in the hobby, a little orphan patch like this is really, they're just like, redheaded stepchildren. And I have a sister who's redheaded, so I understand that. But this is a bad idea if you don't tape this. So what I have learned to do, and somebody taught me this, so I'm passing it on. At NOAC, as soon as you make a tray, don't wait till that nighttime when you sort your patches out on your dorm room bed. As soon as you make the trade, put a piece of tape in these 2 things together, because later, if you don't, you're going to end up with some orphans. And we don't want to have any orphans at NOAC. That would be very, very sad. So there you go. Brad, we're going to let you wrap it up for us.
Well, I will gladly take any of your orphan patches, Jason. I'm sure I can find their mothers or something. We will reunite them. Hey, just great show tonight. I know looking for a lot of feedback as usual. Jason and I are always interested in getting some feedback through the Facebook group, through email, however you guys want to get a hold of us. Jason, and this is kind of an idea I'm going to throw out here at the end of the show. Want some more feedback. Looking at the next show, maybe show after that, doing a live show. As you guys probably aren't aware, we actually do this show via, help me out here, Jason, it's
Google Hangout on Air.
Google Hangout on Air. So we actually do the show. There is a way to have people join and watch the show live. We can stream the show live. I mean, we've been recording it and then dumping it on the Scout Patch Collectors group as we're ready to do so. But the idea of doing a live show, maybe having pre-topics, there's a discussion board you can actually toss out there, questions and ideas. So you would be an audience of the show, not necessarily participating in it, but be an audience of the show and be able to watch us actually do this live. We don't edit any of this show, so everything you see on any of the shows we've done has been a straight 30 minutes of Jason and I going back and forth with no editing. So it's pretty much off the cuff. We have an outline we kind of go by, and we let you guys know. But a lot of this stuff is just us talking, collector to collector. So be pretty interesting. We would probably we'd be looking at coming up with a schedule and see how many people be interested in it. So if it's something you guys think it might be interesting to do, we'd love to hear back, and be looking for that live show. I'm sure Jason and I will pilot this before we try it, just to make sure that things can go smoothly and we can control it. But I think it'd be a lot of fun. We have a little more interactive show, maybe some good topics and some feedback. So look forward to that. Jason, we'll let you round us out here.
Okay, Brad, and a few people have talked to me about coming on as guests, and I have not forgotten you. Brad and I have been a little slow in getting Threadheads really going back on any kind of a normal schedule, because life kind of gets in the way sometimes of playing with patches. But those of you who have reached out to us about being guests on the show, we're still considering that and definitely making plans to do that, and we'll still try to make that happen. So thanks again for watching Threadheads. Again, you can find this show at scoutpatchcollectors.com, and you can always find Brad and I hanging out on Facebook in the Scout Patch Collectors Facebook group. Thanks very much. Appreciate it.